Welcome to the video tutorial for Honeysuckle Rose, the 12th pattern in the Stardust Melodies Crochet Along series and our 6th ebook exclusive pattern. I'm Polly and I'll be your host. If you'd like more information about the Crochet Along, please visit everytrickonthehook.com or Every Trick on the Hook on Facebook. For this video, I'll be using Aran weight yarn and a 5.5mm crochet hook. Let's get started. We'll begin by making a double magic circle. To do this, take the yarn, wrap it around your fingers not once, but twice, insert your hook into the loops, and pull up a loop of yarn. Then you can take the loops off of your fingers, hold them securely, and pull the yarn tight around your hook. After that, chain one, and that secures your magic circles. And you can continue with your round 1 stitches. To make round 1, make a single crochet into the magic circle. Then chain 2. Then repeat that sequence of stitches 4 times total. So that was 1. I'll make another single crochet into my magic circles. Chain 2, that's 2. Another single crochet into the magic circles. Chain 2, that's 3. One more single crochet in the magic circles, chain 2, and that's 4. Now what I can do is close my magic circles. To do that, I'm going to find my yarn end, and first I'm going to untangle it so that it comes nice and straight right out of the top of my stitches. After I do that, I'm going to pull on it just a little bit, just a tiny bit, until I see one of the loops start to close. See how this one got smaller? That is the loop I'm going to start with. I'm going to close by pulling on this loop first, the one that got smaller, until the other one closes all the way. Then I can go back to my yarn end and I can pull on that until that loop closes all the way too. Now I can complete round 1 by slip stitching to both loops of the very first stitch that I made. So at the top of that single crochet, the first single crochet I made, I'm going to slip stitch to that, pull my slip stitch tight, and that is round 1. Now for round 2, I'm going to begin by chaining 1. That just brings me up to the height of the new stitches I'm about to make. The first stitch I'm going to make is a single crochet in the back loop only of the first stitch. The first stitch is the one that currently contains the slip stitch that closed round 1. So into just the back loop only of that first stitch, I'm going to make a single crochet. Now at this point, if you want, you can put a stitch marker into the top 2 loops of that single crochet we just made. That way, when you come back around to close round 2 and all the preceding rounds, when you come back around to close the round, you can more easily find the 2 loops that you need to make your slip stitch into, and that can just be a little bit helpful. If you find it helpful, go ahead and do that now. The next thing we'll do for round 2 is make a corner in the chain 2 space, and our corner is single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet. All of the corners we make in this pattern are going to be made the same way. Now we are at the next round 1 stitch, and into the back loop only of that stitch we're going to make a single crochet. And we're going to repeat this all the way around. So now we're at the corner again, so into the chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet. Then into the next stitch under the back loop only, make a single crochet. Then into the next chain 2 space, another corner, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. Then into the next stitch under the back loop only, single crochet. And then lastly, our last chain 2 space, another corner, so single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet. Now we're back to the beginning, so we can slip stitch to both loops of the very first stitch. Like I said, if you have a stitch marker, you can put it in there to help you find those. So slip stitch to the first stitch, pull that slip stitch nice and tight, and that is your round 2. Now for round 3, we'll start by chaining 1, and in round 3 we're going to make some special stitches. The very first stitch we need to make is a cluster into the front loop only of the stitch 1 round below the first stitch. So the first stitch, as always, is the one that has the slip stitch in it from the previous round. So these 2 loops here are the first stitch. I'm going to count downwards 1 round from that stitch. And it's easy to find because we're working straight into the round 1 stitch, and there's only 1 round 1 stitch below us. So to make a cluster, we're going to make it into the front loop only of that round 1 stitch, so it'll go right under this loop right here. But to make a cluster, it's like making 3 double crochets together. We'll start by yarning over once, and then insert your hook under the front loop only of that round 1 stitch. Pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through 2 loops, just 2. Leave these 2 loops on your hook and do that again. Yarn over once, insert your hook under the front loop only, the same front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. That's twice. Leave these 3 loops on your hook, yarn over once, insert your hook under the same front loop only, and pull up a loop. Don't worry if that loop that you're working into stretches out, it'll go back into shape later. Then yarn over and pull through 2 loops, just like you did before. You should have 4 loops on your hook. You can yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. And that's a cluster. The next thing we're going to do is single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch. We're not going to work any stitches into the first stitch. That stitch is now hidden behind the cluster, and it counts as worked because the cluster is in front of it. So the next stitch we're going to work is this single crochet on the end. Under the back loop only, we'll make a single crochet into that stitch. Now we're at our corner, so we'll make our normal single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet in the corner chain 2 space. Next, we'll single crochet in the back loop only of the very next stitch, and now we need to make another cluster. So, to make our cluster, we'll make it into the front loop only of the stitch 1 round below the next stitch. So here's my next stitch. I just worked into that one, now I'm working into this one. I'm going to count downwards 1 round to the round 1 stitch below it. And under the front loop only, that front loop right there, is where I'll make my cluster. So to make our cluster, yarn over once, insert your hook under the front loop only, the one we just identified, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over again, insert your hook under the same front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. One more time, yarn over once, insert your hook under the same front loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. You should have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. Next, a single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch. Not the one behind the cluster, but the next one. Now you should be at your next corner chain 2 space, so make your normal single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet in the corner. Let's do that again. Single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch. Now cluster in the front loop only of the stitch 1 round below the next stitch. So yarn over once, here's my next stitch, 1 round below is this round 1 stitch. Under the front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over again, insert your hook under the same front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over again, insert your hook under the same front loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 4. Next, single crochet under the back loop only of the next stitch. That should take you to your corner, into the chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet again. Alright, one last time, single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch, then cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below the next stitch. So here's my next stitch, one round below is this round one stitch. So yarn over once and insert my hook under the front loop only of that round one stitch. Pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through two loops. Yarn over again, insert my hook under the same front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through two loops. Yarn over again, insert your hook under the same front loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through two loops. 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops. Single crochet in the back loop only of the last stitch of the side, right before the corner. Then into the corner, make your normal single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet. The last thing you need to do is make a single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch, and that's the last stitch of the round. Now you can slip stitch to both loops of the very first cluster to join. Pull your slip stitch nice and tight, and that is round 3. Now for round 4, start by making a chain 1 and single crochet in the back loop only of that very first stitch, the same stitch that has the slip stitch in it, which is the cluster. Under just the back loop only, make a single crochet. Now in round 4 we're going to make more cluster stitches, but I won't show them to you in quite as much detail because I'm sure you've got them by now. I'll pay more attention to how to place them. So we're going to make a cluster next, and we're going to make it in the front loop only of the stitch one round below the next stitch. So here's our next stitch, the one right after the cluster, and you might need to move the cluster to the side a little bit to see the stitch right below it. But if you find the front loop only, insert your hook under that front loop. That's where you're going to make your cluster, okay? So I'm going to make my cluster under the front loop only of the stitch one round below the next stitch. Just like we did in round 3, this is a 3DC cluster all made into the same front loop only. 4 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops. Now I can single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch, so not the one behind the cluster, but the next one. Under the back loop only of that next stitch, single crochet. Now I'm at my corner, so I can single crochet and chain 2 and single crochet again in the corner. Next, I'm going to single crochet in the back loop only of the first stitch of the side, very next stitch, back loop only, single crochet. Now I'm going to make another cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below the next stitch. So here's my next stitch and one round below. Again, you might need to move the cluster out of the way to find the front loop only, which is right there. That's where I'll make my next cluster, just under the front loop only. Alright, there's my cluster. Now I'm going to single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch. The next stitch is the cluster from the previous round. So just under the back loop only, I'll single crochet. Now again, make another cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below the next stitch. So again, you might need to move the cluster out of the way so that you can find the front loop only of the stitch one round below the next stitch. So here's my next stitch right here, and one round below is this bar right here. That's where I'll make my next cluster. There we go. So there's 2 clusters on the side. After that, I single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch. That puts me at my corner. I can make my normal single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. So that is the side of round 4. We made a regular corner, a single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch. Then we made a cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below, which goes right on the side of the round 3 cluster. Then we made a single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch, which happened to be the back loop only of the cluster. Then we made a cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below the next stitch. So there's a cluster on each side of the round 3 cluster. Then a single crochet in the back loop only of the last stitch of the side and another corner. And that's how we made a full side of round 4. So I'll go ahead and make the rest of my sides of round 4. So single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch, then cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below. Then single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch, which is the round 3 cluster, back loop only, single crochet, then another cluster, front loop only, stitch one round below the next stitch. There's my cluster, then single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch or the last stitch of the side. Then single crochet in the chain 2 space, chain 2, and single crochet again for your corner. Got too many loops there, let me try that again. Last single crochet, okay. Now, next side, single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch, cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below. Single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch, which is the cluster, and then cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below. Now single crochet in the back loop only of the last stitch of the side. Now into your corner, you can single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. Now to finish up this last little bit, we'll single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch, and the last stitch of the round is to make a cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below. There we go. Alright, once you've made your last cluster, you can slip stitch to both loops of that very first single crochet to join. Pull that nice and tight, and that is round 4. Now if you want, you can always go back and pop your clusters out so that they're nice and round. Pinch them a little, get them into shape. I just like to take my finger and stick it in the back of the cluster, and then I sort of make it pop a little bit. And you might need to do this again at the end to make them nice and shapely. They might flatten out just from getting handled a lot. But there you go, you can make them nice and round that way. That is round 4. Now for round 5. Round 5 is a very basic round of single crochet in the back loop only, but it's very important because I'm going to ask you to repeat round 5 several times later in the pattern. So to make round 5, the first thing you do is chain 1 and single crochet in the back loop only of the very first stitch. Next, single crochet in the back loop only of each stitch across to the next corner. So in the back loop only of each stitch across to the next corner. And depending on what round you're on, you're going to have a different number of stitches here. For round 5, there were just 3 more stitches after the first one, but in future rounds there will be more there. Once you get to the corner, make your normal single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet again in the corner chain 2 space. Next, single crochet across the side by single crocheting in the back loop only of each stitch. So, back loop only of each stitch across the side. until you get to your next corner, and then do that again. Make your corner, single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet, and then again single crochet in the back loop only of each stitch across the side. Don't worry too much if your cluster stitches lose their puffiness. You can always go back and reshape them later. They get kind of flat from being handled. My thumb keeps pressing on them and flattening mine out, but I'll fix them later. Alright, so across the side to the next corner, and then single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet in the corner. Then one more time, single crochet in the back loop only of each stitch across the side. You're not going to need to repeat round 5 for a couple more rounds, but you can use the link that's in the comments of the video to get back here if you need to see this again. So in the back loop only, single crochet all the way across. Now I'm at my last corner, so single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet again. Now I'll single crochet in the back loop only of each stitch across to the first stitch that I made, and then I'll slip stitch to both loops of that very first stitch to join, pull it nice and tight, and that is round 5. For round 6, start with a chain 1 and a single crochet in the back loop only of the very first stitch. Single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch, so the first 2 stitches get single crochets in the back loop only. And now we're going to make a double crochet, and we're going to make the double crochet in the front loop only of the stitch 2 rounds below and 2 stitches behind our next stitch. So you can count that out either way, and I recommend that if you're going to count this out, do so by first counting backwards from your next stitch. So here's my next stitch right here. These 2 loops are my next stitch. I'll count the stitches backwards, 1, 2 back, and now I'll count rounds downward. These horizontal bars represent each round, and each segment is a stitch. So next stitch, 1, 2 stitches backwards, and 2 rounds below. So here's 1 round below and 2 rounds below, sort of tucked under there. You might need to bend your work a little bit to see it, but it's actually the front loop only of the round 3 cluster. So you can count, but you should know that all the way around, all of the double crochets that you're going to make are actually made into the front loop only of this round 3 cluster. So what we'll do to make our double crochet, because that cluster is way down here and a double crochet isn't really going to reach, at least not without bending our work a lot, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to mess up the tension of our work. So I'll show you what we do. We yarn over once for our double crochet, then insert your hook under the front loop only of the cluster from round 3 and pull up a loop. Now once your loop is pulled up, you can pull on it to lengthen it. Once it gets about the height of where your other stitches are, then you can complete your double crochet as normal. Yarning over and pulling through 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through another 2 loops. So that just makes a lengthened double crochet that reaches the front loop only of the cluster without pulling on your work. After you make that double crochet, you'll single crochet in the back loop only of the next 2 stitches, which happen to be the last 2 stitches of the side. You want to make sure you don't single crochet into the back loop only of the stitch that should be behind your double crochet, because then you'll end up with too many stitches on the side. So just the last 2 stitches of the side under the back loop only, single crochets, and that should bring you to your corner. Into the corner, make your normal single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet. Now let's look at a full side of round 6. We'll start off with single crochets in the back loop only of the first 2 stitches of the side. Now we're going to make a double crochet in the front loop only of the stitch 2 rounds below and 2 stitches ahead of our next stitch. Again, you can count it out by counting here from your next stitch 1, 2 ahead and 1 round and 2 rounds below, or you can just know that it's the front loop only of the very bottom cluster, the one from round 3. So into that cluster, into the front loop only, I'm going to make a double crochet by pulling the double crochet's yarn up to the height of my work. So you can see it comes up maybe about 3/4 of an inch is how much I'm lengthening it, and then I'll complete my double crochet. Now I want to make sure I don't work into the stitch that goes behind my double crochet, but into the next one, into the back loop only, single crochet 3 times. So 1, 2, and 3. And you'll know that you've placed those correctly because the third one actually ends up directly above this cluster on the far side. So 1, 2, 3 single crochets in the back loop only, and now we'll make another double crochet in the front loop only of the stitch, 2 stitches behind and 2 rounds below our next stitch. Again, this is the front loop only, the same one that our last double crochet was worked into, the front loop only of the very bottom cluster from round 3. So you don't really need to count it out each time. You can just work right into the front loop only of that cluster. So under that front loop only as where I'll make my double crochet by pulling the yarn up to the height of my work and completing my double crochet. Then I'll single crochet in the back loop only of the last 2 stitches of the side. Then I'm at my next corner, which I'll make normally. And then we'll take a look at what we did. So here's a full side of round 6. We made our corner, and then we made 2 single crochets in the back loop only, in those first 2 stitches. Then we made a double crochet in the front loop only of the stitch, 2 stitches ahead and 2 rounds below, which happens to be the round 3 cluster, the bottom cluster. So in the front loop only of that stitch, we made a double crochet by pulling the double crochet up to the height of our work so that it doesn't mess with the tension of our work. Then we made 3 single crochets in the back loop only, and then we made another double crochet in the front loop only of the stitch, 2 stitches behind and 2 rounds below, same exact stitch that we made the last double crochet into, so it was really easy to find. Then we made single crochets in the back loop only of the last 2 stitches and our next corner. So that is a full side of round 6. Go ahead and repeat that on the next 1 and 2 sides, and I'll show you how to finish up this last little bit of round 6. To finish the last side of round 6, we'll make our last corner in the chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet again in the chain 2 space. Next, we'll single crochet in the back loop only of the next 2 stitches. Now we'll double crochet in the front loop only of the stitch 2 stitches ahead and 2 rounds below the next stitch. Or, like we did on all the other sides, we'll make it into the front loop only of the round 3 cluster. That's the front loop we're looking for. And in the case of this last side, the very first double crochet we made was made into that front loop, so we don't need to look for it. We can actually just make our double crochet right into the same front loop that that first double crochet is in. Pull up a loop and then pull it to the height of your work. Finish your double crochet. And the last thing you need to do is single crochet in the back loop only of that very last stitch, and then you can slip stitch to both loops of the first stitch to join, pull it nice and tight, and that is your round 6. To make round 7, I'm going to start by chaining 1, and our very first stitch of this side is a double crochet that's made into the front loop only of the stitch 3 rounds below our first stitch. So I can count it out by finding my first stitch and then counting 1 round below right here. Then I kind of have to move the round 6 double crochets out of the way to see the 2 rounds below, and that's when I realized 3 rounds below is the exact same loop that these 2 round 6 double crochets have been made into. So I need to work into the same loop, the one from this cluster. Okay, so I'm going to make a double crochet into that same loop, but it already has stitches in it, so how should I place this? Well, what you'll need to do is insert your hook under that front loop between the 2 double crochets. So I've yarned over once for my double crochet. I'm going to insert my hook from underneath, under that front loop, right between the 2 double crochets. You can see that I can't really see this one over here, but this one over here I can see, and then I can see I'm under the front loop only, so I think I'm in the right spot. So pull up a loop. Yep, that looks good, right in the middle. Now I can pull that loop up to the height of my work so that my double crochet doesn't pull on my work. Then I can complete my double crochet. That's that. Now I can single crochet in the back loop only of the next 5 stitches. That should bring me to my corner. 4 and 5 is the last stitch of the side. So I'm at my corner, so I'll make my normal single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet. Alright, let's take a look at a full side of round 7. First thing we need to do is single crochet in the back loop only of the first 5 stitches. That's 2, 3, 4, and 5. The next stitch should be the very middle stitch, and now we're going to make a double crochet in the front loop only of the stitch 3 rounds below the next stitch. So again, here's my next stitch, and I can count downwards, or just like the last double crochet we made, I know that it goes into the same front loop only that the round 6 double crochets were worked into, the one from this cluster, and I'm going to again make my new double crochet right between these 2 round 6 double crochets. So I'll yarn over once, find that loop, insert my hook under the loop right in the middle, pull up a loop, then pull that loop up to the height of my work and complete my double crochet. Now I can single crochet in the back loop only of the next 5 stitches. And that brings me to my next corner. And now we can take a look at what we did for this full side of round 7. Made a corner, and then we made 5 single crochets in the back loop only. That put us right in the middle, where we made a double crochet in the front loop only of the stitch 3 rounds below, which happened to be the same front loop only that the round 6 double crochets were made into. Then we made 5 single crochets in the back loop only, which brought us to our next corner. So that's a full side of round 7. You can go ahead and make that again on this next 1 and 2 sides, and I'll meet you back here to show you how to finish up the rest of round 7. To finish the last side of round 7, we'll make our last corner in the last chain 2 space. So single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet in the chain 2 space. Okay, now all we need to do to finish round 7 is single crochet in the back loop only of the next 5 stitches. Then you can slip stitch to the top 2 loops of that very first double crochet and pull your slip stitch nice and tight, and that is round 7. Now, after you're done with round 7, I want you to repeat round 5 4 times. So rounds 8, 9, 10, and 11 are all repeats of round 5. So that's 4 more rounds of basic single crochet in the back loop only with your normal single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in the corners. So rounds 8, 9, 10, 11, and then I will meet you back here and we will do round 12 together. Now for round 12. You should have already completed round 8, 9, 10, and 11, all as repeats of round 5, and now we'll work on round 12. To begin, chain 1, and we'll single crochet in the back loop only of the first 2 stitches. So first 2 stitches, back loop only, single crochet 1 and 2. Next, we're going to make a special stitch, a treble 2 together, and we're going to have to count some stitches out. I don't have a lot of cheats for you in this round. There's a few, but if we count out our stitches carefully in this round, then our stitches in the future rounds are going to go much more easily, and the next few rounds are easier. We just have to muscle our way through counting out stitches in this round. So a treble two together, here's how we make it. We're going to make the first leg of the treble two together into the front loop only of the stitch 2 rounds below and 2 stitches behind our next stitch. The second leg goes into the front loop only of the stitch 2 rounds below and 2 stitches ahead. So it's going to make a sort of like a inverted V shape. Okay, let's start. So before I get ready to make my stitch, I'm going to count. So here's my next stitch. Let's take a look at this. These horizontal bars are our rounds that we're going to count down. So from the next stitch, we'll count 1 down, 2 down, and then you can see that the horizontal bars are sort of segmented. Those are the stitches we'll count 1 behind, 2 behind. So there's the front loop only right there of the stitch that I want to work my first leg of my treble two together into. So I'll yarn over twice, and then I'll insert my hook from below underneath the front loop only of that stitch we just counted 2. Then I'll pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to leave them there while I make the second leg of our stitch. Let's count again. So counting from the same stitch, which is this one right here, we'll count 1 round down, 2 rounds down, and 1 stitch ahead and 2 stitches ahead. That's the front loop I want to make my second leg into. So I'll yarn over twice and insert my hook under that front loop only and pull up a loop, then yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Now I have 3 loops on my hook. I'll yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on my hook, and that's my treble two together. After I make this stitch, I'm going to make 3 single crochets in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. So to find the next stitch, it's best really to pull your treble two together down a bit and look at the tops of your stitches. So these 2 loops are the stitch behind my treble two together. That's the stitch I counted everything from. That's the one that counts as worked by the treble two together because it's right in front of it. This is my next stitch. So that's the first one. I'm going to put a single crochet into the back loop only. So there's 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, now we've done 3 single crochets in the back loop only. Let's do another treble two together. We're going to make this treble two together exactly the way we made the last one, except this time I have a little cheat for you. The first leg of the treble two together always goes into the same front loop only as the second leg of the last treble two together. So you don't really need to count the first leg, you just need to count the second leg. So yarn over twice, insert your hook under the same front loop only as the last leg of the last treble two together and pull up a loop. Then yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. There's your first leg. Now your second leg you are going to have to count. I have a little cheat for you though, but let's count it out first. So here's the next stitch, the stitch we're counting from. We'll count 1 round down, 2 rounds down, then 1 stitch ahead, 2 stitches ahead, happens to be the very last stitch on the same level as the other trebles that we made. So you can either find the last stitch that goes right along that same horizontal bar, or you can count it out like we just did. Under that front loop only, pull up a loop, then yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. When 3 loops are on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And that is your second treble two together. Now, after that, again, we're going to make 3 single crochets in the back loop only. So pull that treble two together down so you can see there's the stitch you counted from. So there's the next stitch. So under the next stitch, under the back loop only, single crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Now you should have 1 stitch left before your corner. We're not going to work into that stitch, we're going to work in front of it. A treble into the front loop only of the stitch 2 rounds below and 2 stitches behind. So counting from this stitch, again, a little cheat, you can work this stitch into the exact same loop as the second leg of the last treble two together. So you don't really need to count this one. You can just go under that same front loop only from below, under the same front loop only as the second leg of the last treble two together, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through two loops, yarn over, pull through two loops, yarn over, pull through two loops. So just a regular treble in the same loop as the second leg of the last treble two together. After that, you're at your corner. You don't need to work in that last corner space because your treble's in front of it, or that last stitch because your treble's in front of it. So you'll work into the corner space now. Your regular single crochet, chain two, and another single crochet. Okay, there's our corner. Now let's take a look at a full side of round 12. To start, we're going to make a treble. We're not going to work into the loops of the first stitch. We're going to make a treble in front of it. We'll make the treble in the front loop only of the stitch 2 rounds below and 2 stitches ahead. So I'll yarn over twice and I'll count. Here's my next stitch. It's actually easier to count your stitches ahead first because we're at the end of the row. So here's my next stitch. Let's count 1 stitch ahead, 2 stitches ahead. Now let's count 1 round below, 2 rounds below. And under that front loop only, we'll make a treble. Okay. Now we need to single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. So fold it down if you need to, identify the stitch behind it, and then the next stitch under the back loop only, 1, 2, and 3. Now here's where we start some repeats of some stitches. We're going to make a treble 2 together, and then we're going to make 3 single crochets in the back loop only, and we're going to do that 4 times total all the way across the side. So let's make our treble 2 together, yarn over twice, and the first leg of the treble goes into the same loop as that last treble that we made. So you don't need to count out the first leg, you can just work under the same front loop only as that treble. Pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Okay, now we'll count out our second leg. Yarn over twice to get ready. Here's the stitch we're counting from, that's the next stitch. 1 round below, 2 rounds below, then 1 stitch ahead and 2 stitches ahead. Under that front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. And there's your treble 2 together. Now we will bend that down, and okay, that's our stitch behind our treble 2 together. That's the next stitch. So under the back loop only of the next stitch, single crochet 1, 2, 3 times. And that's our stitch repeat. So treble 2 together, 3 single crochets in the back loop only. Let's do that again. Treble 2 together, yarn over twice. Again, the first leg goes in the same exact loop as the second leg of the previous treble 2 together. So under the same front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Now let's make our second leg. This one, yarn over twice, this one will count. So here's our next stitch, 1 round below, 2 rounds below, 1 stitch ahead, 2 stitches ahead. Under that front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. And there's your next treble 2 together. Now fold that down, find your next stitch and single crochet in the back loop only of 1, 2, 3 stitches. Okay, halfway there. Let's make another treble 2 together. So yarn over twice. Again, first leg goes in the same loop as the second leg of the previous treble 2 together. So under the same loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Now let's make our second leg, so yarn over twice. Here's the next stitch. Here's 1 stitch down, or I'm sorry, 1 round down and 2 rounds down. 1 stitch ahead, 2 stitches ahead. Under that front loop only, that's where I'll make my second leg. So I'll pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. Now 3 single crochets in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches, so fold that down. There's my next stitch. 1, 2, and 3 single crochets in the back loop only. Let's make our last treble 2 together. So yarn over twice. The first leg goes in the same loop as the second leg of the previous treble 2 together. Under that front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over twice. We can count this one from here. Here's our next stitch. 1 round below, 2 rounds below, 1 stitch ahead, 2 stitches ahead. Happens to be the very last stitch of the side for that round. So under that front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. And now let's make 3 single crochets in the back loop only. Alright, that's the stitch behind my treble. There's my next stitch. So 1, 2, 3 single crochets in the back loop only. Alright, I have 1 stitch left on my side. I'm going to make a treble in the front loop only of the stitch 2 rounds below and 2 stitches behind, but again, this is made into the same front loop only as the second leg of the last treble 2 together. So I'll just yarn over twice, insert my hook under the same front loop only, and then make my treble as usual. That is the last stitch of my side, so I can jump right into my corner and make a single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in my corner. Okay, that is a full side of round 12. Let's take a look at what we did. So we made our normal single crochet, chain 2, single crochet corner. Then we made a treble by counting 2 stitches ahead and 2 rounds below, and we worked into that front loop only. Then we did 3 single crochets in the back loop only in the next 3 stitches. Then we made a treble 2 together. The first leg worked into the stitch 2 rounds below and 2 stitches behind, which happened to be the same front loop as the treble we made. Then we worked the second loop, or the second leg of the treble 2 together, 2 rounds below and 2 stitches ahead. Then we did 3 single crochets in the back loop only. So we repeated that. Treble 2 together, 3 single crochets in the back loop only across, 4 times total. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. That left us 1 stitch on the side, and we made a treble into the same front loop only as the second leg of the previous treble 2 together. We are at our corner, made another corner. So that is our full side of round 12. Go ahead, make that again, exactly the same way on the next 2 sides, and I'll catch up with you back here and I'll show you how to finish up this last section of round 12. Alright, let's finish up this last side of round 12. We'll make our last corner, single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet in the corner. Now, the first thing that we do is treble in the front loop only of the stitch 2 stitches ahead and 2 rounds below. So here's our very first stitch of the side. We'll count from there. 1 stitch ahead, 2 stitches ahead, and then 1 round below and 2 rounds below. Under that front loop only is where we'll make a treble, just a regular treble. Then we'll single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3. Now we need to make a treble 2 together. The very first leg goes in the same front loop as that treble we just made. So yarn over twice, under the same front loop as the treble, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Oops, not all 3, just 2. There we go. Okay, now for the next leg, yarn over twice, and let's count from our next stitch, 1 round down, 2 rounds down, 1 stitch ahead, 2 stitches ahead. Under that front loop only is where we'll make our second leg. Pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. There's your treble 2 together. Now bend that down, find your next stitch. We'll single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Let's make our last treble 2 together of this side. Okay. Yarn over twice. The first leg goes in the same loop as the second leg of the previous treble 2 together. under the same front loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. All right, now here's the trick. The second leg of your very last treble 2 together goes into the same front loop as the first leg of your first treble 2 together. You've come all the way back around. So under the same front loop only, but on the other side of your very first treble 2 together is where you'll make your second leg of your last treble 2 together. Pull through all 3 loops, and there you have it. There's your last treble 2 together. All you need to do now is single crochet in the back loop only of the very last stitch, and then slip stitch to both loops of the first single crochet to join. Pull that nice and tight, and you are done with round 12. In round 13, we're going to make more cluster stitches, and we're going to make them in the middle, right in between our treble 2 together. So in the middle of these V's, we'll be placing cluster stitches. Let's start by chaining 1, and the very first stitch we're going to make is a cluster in the front loop only of the stitch 1 round below our first stitch. So here's our very first stitch. Just 1 round below, under that front loop only right there, is where we'll make our first cluster. So if you recall, I'll go over a cluster again. So yarn over once, insert your hook under that front loop only, and pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and then you do that a total of 3 times. So yarn over, insert your hook under the same front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. One more time, yarn over, insert your hook under the same front loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And you should have 4 loops on your hook, so yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. And that is your first cluster. Now what we're going to do is single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. So you might need to move that out of the way. Find your next stitch, which is the one right before the treble 2 together. Under the back loop only, single crochet 1, 2, and 3. Now make another cluster in the front loop only of the stitch 1 round below the next stitch. A cluster, front loop only 1 round below. Another cluster. So see how it's right in the V, right in the middle. Now single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Now make another cluster in the front loop only of the stitch 1 round below. So here's my next stitch, 1 round below. Make a cluster in the front loop only. And then single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. Okay, now that should take you to your corner where you'll make your normal single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet. Now let's take a look at a full side of round 13, which is really easy. The first thing we're going to do is single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. 2 and 3. Okay, now here's our stitch repeat that we'll do all the way across the side. We'll make a cluster in the front loop only of the stitch 1 round below the next stitch. So 1 round below, front loop only, make a cluster. And then we'll single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. Oops, back loop only, 3 single crochets, 2 and 3. And that's what we're going to repeat all the way across the side. So cluster, 3 single crochets, cluster, 3 single crochets. So cluster in the front loop only of the stitch 1 round below the next stitch. And then single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. Cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below the next stitch. Then single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. A couple more times. Cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below the next stitch. Front loop only, cluster. Single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. Cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below the next stitch. And then single crochet in the back loop only of the last 3 stitches of the side. That should take you to your corner. And let's look at what we did here. Okay, here's a full side of round 13. We made our corner and then we single crocheted in the back loop only of the first 3 stitches of the side. Then we made a cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below the next stitch. That ended up right in the middle of the V's made by the treble 2 together and the treble. Then we, all the way across the side, 3 single crochets in the back loop only, cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below. 3 single crochets in the back loop only, cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below. Again, 3 single crochets in the back loop only, cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below. 3 single crochets in the back loop only, cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below. And 3 more single crochets in the back loop only. It was really simple, right? 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, all the way across. So go ahead and do that again on the next 2 sides, and I'll show you how to finish up the last side of round 13. Now let's make the last side of round 13. We'll start by making our corner, our last corner in the chain 2 space with a single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet. Now we will single crochet in the back loop only of the first or the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3. Now we can make a cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below. Alright, now we can make single crochets, 3 single crochets in the back loop only, well, single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches, 2 and 3. Our last cluster in the front loop only of the stitch one round below the next stitch. There's our last cluster. And now we can finish up with a single crochet in the back loop only of the last 3 stitches. And then slip stitch to the top 2 loops of the first stitch, which is the cluster. To both loops of the cluster, slip stitch, pull that nice and tight, and that is round 13. Now for round 14, I want you to make a repeat of round 5. So just another round of basic single crochet in the back loop only with single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in the corner. Make that for round 14, and then I will meet back up with you for round 15. Now for round 15. You should have already completed round 14 as a repeat of round 5. For round 15, we're going to make more treble 2 together stitches, but I have a very easy way to make them. So I'll show you how to make them without counting at all. You can still count if you want. The stitches are made exactly the same as the ones we made in round 12. The first leg goes in the front loop only of the stitch 2 rounds below and 2 stitches behind, and the second leg goes in the front loop only of the stitch 2 rounds below and 2 stitches ahead. let's get started. Chain 1, and I'll show you my cheat. So here's why it's so easy. Every treble 2 together that we make in this round is going to be made into the front loop only of the round 12 treble 2 togethers and the trebles that are on the sides. So you don't need to count any stitches at all. They're very easy to find. You're working over a cluster each time, and the first leg goes into the treble or treble 2 together on this side, and the second leg goes into the treble or treble 2 together on this side. So let's do one. Yarn over twice. The first leg goes in the front loop only of the treble behind you. Front loop only of the treble 2 together that's behind you, and the first one is always the hardest to do, so bend your work as much as you need to get in there. Pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, then yarn over twice, insert your hook under the front loop only of the next treble 2 together. Pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. Okay, there's my treble 2 together, and you see how it's aligned? First leg is worked into the front loop only of this treble 2 together, and don't worry that it's stretched a little. That will go away after the whole round is made and the block has some time to settle. And the second leg goes into the front loop only of the treble 2 together on this side of the cluster. So each treble 2 together that we make is going to go over a cluster, and the legs will be worked just that way in the front loop only of the trebles on either side, or the treble 2 togethers on either side of the cluster. Okay, so we made our first one. After that, we'll single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. If I can do this, there we go. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to make another treble 2 together. Again, the first leg goes into the front loop only of the treble 2 together on this side of the cluster, and the second leg goes into the treble 2 together on this side of the cluster. So yarn over twice under the front loop only of that treble 2 together behind us, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Okay, second leg, yarn over twice, and then in the next treble 2 together under just the front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. There we go. Now single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3, and another treble 2 together. So yarn over twice, and the first leg goes in this treble 2 together, the same one that has the second leg from the previous treble 2 together that we made. So that's where the first leg goes. Pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. The second leg, yarn over twice, goes into the top of the front loop only of the treble from round 12. So we're out of treble 2 togethers. Now this is the treble that's on the very end. In the front loop only is where we'll make the second leg of our treble 2 together. Then finish that up. Now we just single crochet in the back loop only of the last 5 stitches of the side. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Should bring you right to your corner. Make your normal corner, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. Okay, now let's take a look at a full side of round 15. We'll start by single crocheting in the back loop only of the first 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we'll make a treble 2 together. The first leg will go into the front loop only of this treble from round 12. The second leg will go in the front loop only of this treble 2 together from round 12. So yarn over twice, insert your hook in the front loop only of that treble, and pull up a loop. Then yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over twice, insert your hook in the front loop only of that treble 2 together, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. There's our first treble 2 together of the side. Now we can single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. Now let's make another treble 2 together. First leg goes in the treble 2 together of round 12 that's behind us, the same one that the second leg of the last treble 2 together we made was made into, and the second leg goes into the front loop only of the next treble 2 together from round 12. So yarn over twice, under that front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Second leg, yarn over twice, front loop only of the next treble 2 together, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. And there's our next treble 2 together. See how it's making diamonds that fit around our clusters? Okay. Single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. We're just going to keep doing this until all the little diamonds are made. Single crochet in 3, back loop only of 3 stitches, and another treble 2 together. Again, in the front loop only of the treble 2 togethers from round 12. Each leg goes into the front loop only. There's our treble 2 together. Single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. Now make another treble 2 together. Again, it goes into the front loop. Each leg goes into the front loop only of a treble 2 together from round 12. So front loop only is our first leg, and then yarn over twice into the next front loop only of the next treble 2 together is our second leg. And there's another treble 2 together. Now single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. And one more treble 2 together. The first leg goes in the same front loop only as the second leg of the last one. And the second leg goes in the treble that we finished up the side of round 12 with. And there's our last treble 2 together. Now we can single crochet in the back loop only of the last 5 stitches of the side. And that should bring you to your corner. And then we'll take a look at what we did. So here's a full side of round 15. We made 5 single crochets in the back loop only to start, and then we made a treble 2 together, and the legs of that treble 2 together went into the front loop only of that first treble from round 12, and then into this treble 2 together from round 12. Then we made 3 single crochets in the back loop only, and then another treble 2 together. Again, this one went into the round 12 treble 2 togethers. We did that all the way across. So treble 2 together, 3 single crochets in the back loop only. Treble 2 together, 3 single crochets in the back loop only. Treble 2 together, 3 single crochets in the back loop only. Treble 2 together. That completed our little diamonds or zigzags that fit around our clusters. And we finished up the side with 5 single crochets in the back loop only. So that's a full side of round 15. Go ahead and make that again on the next 2 sides, and I'll show you how to finish up this last side of round 15. Let's finish up this last side of round 15 by making our last corner, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, then single crochet in the back loop only of the next 5 stitches. Back loop only, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Alright, now all we need to do is make our treble 2 together. Again, the first leg is going to go into the front loop only of this treble from round 12. The second leg is going to go in this front loop only of this treble 2 together from round 12. So yarn over twice in the front loop only of the treble, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over twice, insert under the front loop only of the treble 2 together, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. There's our treble 2 together. Now we'll single crochet in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. And now we'll make our very last treble 2 together. Each leg is going to go in the front loop only of one of these treble 2 togethers from round 12. So first leg goes over here, second leg goes over here. So yarn over twice, under the front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over twice, under the next front loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through all 3. And that's our last treble 2 together. Now all we need to do to finish round 15 is single crochet in the back loop only of the last 3 stitches. Then we can slip stitch to both loops of that very first treble 2 together. Slip stitch to the first stitch, pull it nice and tight, and you are now done with round 15. In round 16, we'll finish up our square by putting on a round of basic single crochet in both loops of the stitches. So to start, chain 1, and then single crochet into both loops of the very first stitch. Now single crochet in both loops of each stitch across the side till you get to the next corner. So we're just putting on a basic round of single crochet, but we're working in both loops this time to get a nice sturdy round and put a nice sturdy edge on our square, which is good for joining later. So single crochet, both loops, all the way across to the next corner. When you get to the corner chain 2 space, make your normal single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet in the chain 2 space, just like we've always done, and then go ahead and single crochet in both loops of each stitch across to the next corner. And you'll do that on each side all the way around. When you get back to the very first side, go ahead and single crochet in both loops of each stitch across to the first stitch, and then slip stitch to the first stitch to join. Then you can fasten off. You're done. That is the end of our Honeysuckle Rose square. There's one more thing I want to show you before we go, because sometimes, and I noticed I have this happen a lot in this square, my clusters get flat, and I don't really want flat clusters. I mean, they're okay. They are kind of circular looking, but I kind of want them to puff up. So don't be afraid to go in there and reshape your clusters as much as you need. You can even go in from behind and try and pop them out a little bit. But I usually find it works just fine to puff them out. This is better to do when you're done with round 16, but just to show you, don't be afraid to get in there and make your clusters pop. If you're blocking, especially if you're steam blocking, shape them up before you do your steam blocking, and then they'll look really nice forever. That's it. So go ahead and finish up your round 16, fasten off, and that is your Honeysuckle Rose square. And thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this pattern, and I will see you for our next Stardust Melodies crochet along square. Have fun. Happy hooking.